Well, there are striking new details tonight on the armed rebellion in Russia that challenged Vladimir Putin's leadership and briefly threw that country into chaos. A top general in Russia had advanced knowledge about the mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin's plans to revolt against Moscow's military leadership. That is according to U.S. officials who spoke with the New York Times. Now those officials say they're trying to figure out whether this general helped Prigozhin plan his advance to Moscow. The Kremlin is already pushing back, calling the report, quote, gossip and, quote, speculation. John Bolton is the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, also the former national security advisor in the Trump White House, and joins us live. Ambassador, Mr. Ambassador, great to have you once again. You've met Vladimir Putin. The country is calling this report gossip. But if true, just operate in a world for a second that this might be true, how might this shake Vladimir Putin potentially?
Well, you know, there are a lot of twists and turns in the world of coup plotting and counter plotting. I think it's certainly arguable that Prigozhin would not have started toward Moscow unless he had had some indications from some commanders that they would defect and join him and be part of the operation. Now, whether this particular general was one of them or not, we don't know. But there are other possibilities. Prigozhin goes to him and perhaps to others as well and says, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And they immediately tell Valery Gerasimov, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs equivalent and field commander in Ukraine. And Gerasimov says, great, keep talking to Prigozhin, keep me filled in. Right. We don't know whether these people were playing Prigozhin, playing Gerasimov, playing both sides. We really don't know. You know, it's fascinating to hear you say we really don't know, and we've heard that from a lot of folks. I mean, we're talking about information from within inside Russia, for example. Last night I spoke with a former KGB agent, Jack Barsky. You probably know the name. And here's what he said, and I want to get your reaction on the other side of it. Les.
Yeah. Everything is propaganda. And what we're looking at now, these are liars, and they're ruthless liars. Putin has masterfully lied to his own people.
You know, when you hear Jack Barsky say this is propaganda, when I hear someone like yourself say, you know, we really don't know, and you hear a lot of folks say that, I guess the question is, Mr. Ambassador, like, what should we believe right now is the situation in Russia, and what do you think is going on there?
Well, I think it's still uncertain, but I think as of now, there's certainly disarray and disorganization inside the Russian military, particularly as it applies to the battlefield in Ukraine. I think the Ukrainians are going to search for opportunities to take advantage of that. And while I admit that Putin has been weakened by this, and I certainly acknowledge that it's possible, one possible scenario is that it's brought him much closer to the end of his reign. I also know that just because somebody can take a downward turn doesn't mean that they can't take an upward turn the next day. Right. So I am dubious about trying to draw too many conclusions from insufficient information. Shouldn't underestimate Putin. But as far as what the U.S. might have done, you know, if the choice is between Putin and Prigozhin, I think the U.S. response is, don't we get another choice here?
Right. Peel back the curtain a little bit for me, if you can, of what you think is happening within the White House. You were the head of the NSC in the Trump White House for a year and a half. What, you know, the Biden administration is trying to label this as sort of an internal matter within Russia. But what do you think is happening right now within the uppermost senior levels within the administration as they try to figure out what's going on and potential next steps here?
Well, I think there are several things that they were looking at over the weekend and are still looking at now. Priority number one is security of the Russian nuclear stockpile. And I don't know that there's any evidence that that security or integrity was called into question over the last 4 or 5 days because no other generals came to Prigozhin's side. There was no question of a civil war between forces, some of which had nuclear weapons, others of which had other nuclear weapons. But security of the nuclear weapons is the top of the list. Second, I think they want to try and understand how all this affects the battlefield in Ukraine, with a lot riding on whether Ukraine can make some significant successes. A lot rides on this for Vladimir Putin, too. If he can do you see the military do a better job than they've done over most of the past 16 months? That would go a long way toward restoring his prestige and confidence in the military. And then I think number three, just simply trying to understand whether and what the ramifications are more long-term about the events of this weekend. So there's a lot of activity. I think it's news coverage of the events of the weekend and their follow-on may have subsided somewhat, but I don't think activity in the White House for those dealing with Russia and Europe is really down that much.
All right, Ambassador John Bolton, interesting insights as always.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.